Good things come in small packages. Hi, and thanks for joining me. So, as we already know, the road to the Mini Masters is well underway. Thank you to everybody that did check out the brush versus brushless video, which was one of the first ones in the series. So this past week, I've been out not once, but twice to local tracks to get some testing done on the Joker. Now, usually I have my battery pack at the rear of the vehicle. I tried it forwards and played around a little bit with it there, but I just couldn't get on with it. So quite quickly, the battery pack went back to being rearward. Did have an issue with the ball stud popping a couple of times, and the screw that keeps that ball stud in place had worked its way loose. It was a case of a bit of Loctite on, but my running was cut quite short. On to Wednesday night and Blackpool and fouled RCCC. Battery was back to being rearwards. Did have a couple of tracking issues to start the night. The car was a little bit unstable. And after talking to one of the racers at the club that also runs the Joker, Paul, shout out to Paul if you're watching, we talked about the toe out on the front of the car. So I changed the front end and went to running parallel wheels, or as close to parallel that I could get. After that, the car was much, much better, but it did feel like it was struggling to put the power down through the turns, and probably I had a little bit too much steering. Going into my final run, I decided to play around with the exponential, so the throttle curve of the motor, and I dropped it to I think around about 50%. And that throttle curve being smoothed out helped get the power down and gave me a lot more traction out of corners. Also, by knocking the dual rates down slightly, I felt like I had a bit more control as well. So it was a great night testing, and my fastest lap was 0.002 of a second slower than the guy that won our mini class championship last season, Chris. So things are pointing in the right direction. So why bother changing anything? Well, you know me, I like to play. So today we're going to fit the Savox Servo, the SH0257MG Servo, into the Battcave Joker. Now there are a couple of things that we do need in addition just to the servo. It's the Battcave front steering mount, and because the spleen on this servo is slightly different, we've got a 21 spleen servo saver. By inserting this this new servo mount and new servo, we can place the servo in this section at the front here, which is going to free up a lot of space. You're going to want to grab 2mm driver, and first of all, let's get this servo out of here. It's just the 2 screws on the bottom here, which will release our servo mounts. The original Battcave servo saver will have to come off. Don't forget to unplug your servo from your receiver. And there we go. One bigger Savox servo out. So as well as removing that big servo, I've also taken the opportunity to remove all the other electrics out of the Joker, just to give me a little bit more room to work with. One of the other things that we're going to need is the ball studs from the original servo saver. So they're going to need to come out so we can put them in our Kimbra servo saver. Now with these 21 tooth spleen servo savers from Kimbra, the holes are awfully small and they won't take the normal size Joker ball stud. So all I've done is used a reamer and just made the holes slightly bigger, and now we're able to transfer these ball studs into this servo saver. So next you're going to take your front servo mount from Battcave. There is a grub screw at the back of the mount, and that's just so it lines up with that hole there at the top that you can just see, so it fits in and stays secure. I'm going to take my new Savox servo, and it literally just slides in to there. Nice and neat, precision made. So next we'll secure the servo to the mount with the screws provided. Then the little stiffener brace goes on there like that. Now before this recording, I did actually do a little test run. And the first time round, I put the servo in before putting the servo saver on. And it was a little bit more difficult than I would have liked it to have been. So once we've got this brace on, what I suggest we do is install that servo saver. Brace is secured there. Now with this, it's got a handy little gap there to run our servo wire past the steering arms without interfering with anything. There to the other side, nice and tidy. And then when we go to screw it in, there's a little hook almost that sits there to keep it out of the way. Now with the Kimbra servo saver, the screw that you receive isn't long enough to go through to this particular servo with the servo saver. So I've found another screw that does go all the way through and secures it. At this point though, I suggest we take our transmitter and we make everything 0. So all our trim and our sub trim back to 0, centralize it. Just because it's slightly difficult to get the hex driver onto the servo to align our servo, I suggest you centralize your servo first before you install the servo into the front of the car. So that now should all be centralized. Put your servo saver on. I'll just go at a 90-degree angle upright. It's probably the best place to work from, I found. Like I said, I found it difficult trying to get this screw in while it was already installed in the car, so that's why I would do it now. Dolly trying to make an appearance in the background. Once the ball studs are in, the studs pointing to the front of the car, we can install this servo into the chassis. Body posts out, and we just locate that hole. Now don't do what I do and leave this hanging out and forget to check it and screw everything in. Make sure at this point you check that that wire is tucked under the little hook. So once that's sat nicely, take our body posts, they go on top of the mounts and screw in from the bottom. Body posts are now in, servo's now mounted in the front. All we need to do is just go over our steering links, make sure that they're the same size, and then they can be set up. Pop the steering links onto the ball studs, and there we go. What I do like about this is how straight those steering links are now. Get the electrics re-secured, get this fan back on top of my ESC, and we're ready to go racing.